Yeah, for holidays.
Gonna be nice.
Yeah.
Welcome, Excellencies, participants, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, and to all the colleagues and participants from different time zone. My name is Dang Wu, and I'm the officers from ASEAN Center for Energy. Today, I will be the master of ceremony for today's event. So, on behalf of ACE, I would like to thank all the Excellencies and participants for taking your time to participate to our on behalf of ACE. I would like to thank all the and gender workshops with the theme Enhancing ASEAN Renewable Energy Deployment through Women's Entrepreneurship. The workshop is organized by ACE and United Nations Environmental Program, also known as UNEP, as one of the activities for the project, accelerating ASEAN renewable energy deployment through gender-responsive energy policy roadmap. The project is implemented based on the joint ministerial statement in the 39th ASEAN Minister on Energy meetings towards an inclusive and just energy transitions, and the participants and representations of women in renewable energy is regarded as important agents in creating positive impact on the energy transitions, climate mitigations, and gender equality. So the main objectives of the workshop are to raise awareness among AMS of renewable deployment potentials by introducing the important and lessons learned on bridging impediments on women's entrepreneurship in renewable energy. Second is to gather input on how gender responsive could be more elaborated in energy policy development, informing the roadmap on accelerating ASEAN renewable energy deployment through gender responsive energy policies. So before we begin our opening remarks, please allow me to share with you some housekeeping rules. So first of all, participants should adjust the format of your name by typing your country _ name _ the organizations throughout the workshop. And the participants should mute their microphone and only unmute if they wish to present or speak. And the participants should only turn on their video camera when presenting or making an interview, as turning on the videos may impact the quality of the connections and the voice quality. And for Q&A and discussion sessions, those who wish to ask or speak may use the chat room by typing their country and name and send it to everyone, or use the raise hands feature. The moderator will acknowledge these requests and to speak and determine the speaking order. And once the moderator acknowledge, they may turn on the video. And finally, only unmute the microphone once you are called by the moderators to speak. So ladies and gentlemen, we will start our very first sessions today by the welcoming remarks delivered by Mr. Asdihim by Ms. Lathan Ranesh, the Senior Assistant Director from External Relations Department, Energy Market Authorities, on behalf of REPPSSN Chair. Mr. Lathan Ranesh, the floor is now yours.
Thank you very much. Well, I'm not Latha this morning. She's not available to speak because she's not feeling so good. So, well, I'm Agnes. I'm the Assistant Director from the External Relations Department, and I'm very pleased to be with you this morning to join you for this important event. So, if I could just begin my opening remarks. Ex-Executive Director, Dr. Nooki Higuchi, distinguished representatives from the United Nations Environmental Program, esteemed colleagues, a very good morning to all. I would like to thank ACE and UNEP for organizing this workshop on accelerating renewable energy deployment through women's entrepreneurship. I'm delighted to join you here for this important event. The energy sector has traditionally seen more males given its emphasis on technology and engineering, And I'm glad that this has changed over the years, and there are many more women leaders in the industry today. There's a global shift and attention on how gender issues are being reflected in the energy sector. International organizations such as the United Nations, the IEA, the International Energy Agency, and the International Renewable Energy Agency, IRENA, have organized dialogues and put forward analysis on the importance of gender diversity in the clean energy transition. However, despite the increased attention directed at clean energy, the energy sector remains one of the least gender diverse relative to other sectors. According to the IEA, women only make up 32% of the labor force in the renewable energy sector and 22% in the oil and gas sector. When these figures are then viewed against the global labor force, of which women account for 48% of the total, this gender gap then becomes clear. While Singapore too has recognized the importance of gender equality and taken steps to advance women's economic participation at all levels. Our core principle of meritocracy ensures that equal opportunities are available to both men and women. This encompasses education, employment, board representation. A parliamentary debate on the white paper in Singapore on Singapore's women's development was recently conducted this month. This was the first time that Singapore government had presented a white paper on women's development for the parliament to debate. This white paper reaffirms Singapore's vision of a fairer and more inclusive society, consisting of a 10-year roadmap that will assure women with greater access and opportunities in workplace partnerships. At the Energy Market Authority, where I work at, there is a very healthy gender balance within the organization. 1 in every 3 employees in EMA is female. We're also seeing an increasing number of female colleagues serving in the technical, policy, and specialist roles. And in my department, the External Relations Department, I'm very pleased to share that we have a very healthy split of 50-50, both male and females in the department. We work very cohesively together and we enjoy hearing each other's perspectives. So I look forward to the discussions this morning to hear how women are empowering the power sector. This workshop is taking place at a very important juncture as we discuss what it means to have an equitable and also a sustainable energy transition. At the annual Singapore International Energy Week that EMA organizes, we also see that a good balance among speakers can then help spark dialogue on various energy issues. And as ASEAN redoubles its effort to accelerate the clean energy transition, I look forward to a greater number of female voices and perspectives to drive changes in the regional energy landscape and to achieve our common goals. Thank you very much, and I look forward to a vibrant discussion this morning.
Thank you so much, Ms. Annette. Apologies for the inconvenience due to technicalities. I hope you and all the participants will understand. Next, I would like to invite Ms. Annette Valjean, Gender and Climate Officers from UNEP Asia Pacific, on behalf of the Deputy Regional Director of UNEP, to give us the opening remarks. Ms. Annette, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Amira, and good morning, everyone. Sawadee-ka from Thailand, ladies and gentlemen. So my name is Annette Valjean, and on behalf of the United Nations Environment Program, UNEP, I would like to welcome you all and share a few words to express my gratitude for your participation and engagement. So first of all, my warm greetings to the chair of the ASEAN Renewable Energy Subsector Network. I believe we'll have our speaker with us after me. And also, of course, thank you so much to Agnes Ko for your opening. I think you set the scene really well for today's session. Also, of course, let me extend our warm gratitude and welcome to Dr. Nooki, the Executive Director of ASEAN Center for Energy, that we work very closely with for many years now. And of course, a warm welcome to colleagues at ASEAN Center for Energy working so hard with this second workshop of ours, and in particular the roadmap, and strong partners in this journey. Welcome to the speakers today, representing partners such as Energia, ILO, USAID, and the Alliance for Rural clarification. It's really great to see you here. And of course, the distinguished guests. So this is a really critical objective of this session today, which will really feed into the ASEAN roadmap on accelerating ASEAN renewable energy deployment through gender responsive energy policy. The latest report from the UN's Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC, launched recently, emphasized the need to combine adaptation measures with greenhouse gas emissions reductions to enable climate resilient development. And in order to do this, we know that we need adequate financing, inclusive governance and policymaking, and the participation of a wide range of people and groups. And this is very related to the theme of today's workshop on how a gender perspective, understanding the needs of both men and women in accelerating renewable energy can really provide climate resilient development at the same time. Across Southeast Asia, commitments have been made for the energy transition and to expand clean energy access. However, in the context of renewable energy, there is a significant absence of gender mainstreaming and direct investment for women. This is something that UNEP is addressing under the Empower program, which is jointly implemented with our partner UN agency, UN Women, with the generous support of the government of Sweden. So for example, in the report, The State of Gender Equality and Climate Change in ASEAN, developed by these partnerships and in close collaboration with ASEAN Secretariat colleagues, has shown that renewable energy in ASEAN do not address gender equality. And even though we started to see advancements with gender inclusive, national determined contributions to the Paris Agreement, such as in Cambodia and Vietnam, the renewable energy sector in particular remains gender blind. In addition to the policy level, UNEP is also working to support women leaders in renewable energy on the ground. And I'm happy to share with you that as we speak, 40 women-led enterprises in Bangladesh, Cambodia, and Vietnam have started to use renewable energy technologies and accessing financing for climate resilient livelihoods. And in total, more than 400 women report direct economic benefits from accessing renewable energy. So access to renewable energy has really the potential to support climate resilient livelihoods if the enabling policies are there. And the importance of access to alternatives and climate resilient livelihoods has been especially evident in the context of the COVID-19 pandemic. So this workshop is very timely. It aims to ultimately support policymakers and partners to do just that, to be able to integrate gender perspectives in climate change and renewable energy policies and commitments. And here is where the collaboration between the ASEAN Center for Energy and UNEP has been so critical. So for many years, we've together organized joint events, we raised capacity, we ensured gender perspectives are included in renewable energy outlooks in ASEAN. And today we're taking this collaboration one step further when embarking on the ASEAN roadmap for gender responsive policy in renewable energy development. So I'm very happy to be part of this event today and to the work of the roadmap. We look forward to work closely with ASEAN Center for Energy and all of you in the upcoming data gathering, the policy roadmap development, and the dissemination of the roadmap. And may I say the most important part, the uptake by the ASEAN member states. Because through this work, we present new ways of coupling the adaptation measures with greenhouse gas emissions reductions and ultimately support climate resilient development. On that note, let me again extend my gratitude to colleagues at ASEAN Center for Energy and all of you joining this workshop. I hope it will be of great interest and looking forward to listen to all the speakers of today. Kopon ka.
Thank you so much, Ms. Annette, for the inspiring speech. So now I would like to welcome Dr. Nooki Higuchi, Executive Director from ASEAN Center for Energy. Dr. Nooki, the floor is yours now.
Thank you very much, Jiang. Good afternoon, colleagues from ACE-UNEP, and also good morning, perhaps, if someone attending from Europe. I would like to really appreciate on these activities on the ACE-UNEP Renewable Energy Entrepreneurship and Gender Workshop with the title of Enhancing ASEAN Renewable Energy Deployment Through Women's Entrepreneurship. On behalf of the REPP Chair, good morning, Ms. Agnesco. Glad to see you again. The Assistant Director of External Relations Department, Energy Market Authority Singapore. Also on behalf of the UNEP, Ms. Annette Valjean. It's been a while, we haven't seen face to face. As a Gender and Climate Officers, UNEP Asia Pacific. And of course, Your Excellency, the RESN Chair, Mr. Astirhim bin Abdul Rashid, the Senior Undersecretary for Sustainable Energy, the Ministry of Energy and Natural Resources of Malaysia, and distinguished speakers from Energia, from Milo, from USA, from ACE, and also from Alliance for Rural Electrification, or R. On behalf of the ASEAN Center for Energy, I'm honored to welcome all participants to this second workshop related to renewable energy and gender in ASEAN. As I stated, the theme is very intriguing and very important, and of course timely, which is enhancing ASEAN renewable energy deployment through women entrepreneurship. ASEAN is now working towards a more just and inclusive energy transition, as we agreed on the 39th joint ministerial statement during the last ASEAN Ministers on Energy meeting, or AMEM. And also through the ASEAN Energy Blueprint, we call it the ASEAN Plan of Action for Energy Cooperation, or APAI. The region has set a target to achieve 23% RE share for the total primary energy supply, and also 35% of the RE share from the total installed power capacity, both by 2025. Also referring to our last flagship report, we call it the 6th ASEAN Energy Outlook. The projection shows that RE will continuously grow. It was also portrayed through the ASEAN Power Updates 2021 that capacity addition for RE accounted for 82% in 2020, which was unprecedented. However, gaps to achieve renewable supply needs to be accelerated to achieve the aspirational target, and we know that 2025 is not far from now, which is the 3 years from now, meaning that the time is very, very limited and running out. Ladies and gentlemen, the studies on RE and women participation indicated that responsiveness to the needs of the people at the household level and community level would improve due to their sound knowledge of local resources and sustainable resources management in their role as energy managers. We all know that women have a very, very good capacity on multitasking, and women have a very big roles as managers in energy. If we're looking at on this community level, we're looking at on the community level, and also of course starting on the household level. So to realize both the regional target and shared vision of inclusive energy transition, ACE team up with UNEP in developing a roadmap for the ASEAN government or policymakers. And this roadmap charted a pathway to accelerate renewable energy development in ASEAN through an attempt to incorporate a gender-responsive policy. We all hope this roadmap will provide feasible action plans and strategic steps needed for regional and countries level to have an inclusive and productive policy while ensuring environmental sustainability of the energy sectors. And this one is including the financial sustainability. By formulating a way forward and pathway for regional to increase its human resource and institutional capabilities step by step to incorporate gender in RE policy, this roadmap is important for the ASEAN energy sector to walk the grid statement towards an inclusive energy transition. The roadmap also could inform us of the potential collaboration to any direct partners and international organizations in the coming years, or even inspire the new phase of APEC after APEC Phase 2 2025 ended. Ladies and gentlemen, the workshop today will serve as a platform to disseminate best practices and discuss the challenges and opportunities in supporting women's renewable energy entrepreneurship role, which can provide insight into the roadmap development as well as raise awareness of these cross-sectoral benefits. And I hope all participants could gain a deeper knowledge of renewable entrepreneurship and also gender issues. We encourage all participants from focal points in member states not to hesitate to raise your question and gain more perspective from today's workshop. Again, I would like to thank UNEP for supporting this study and our distinguished speakers for their excellent preparation to share their knowledge. And lastly, I wish you all a good health and productive day during this pandemic period. Again, thank you very much for your kind attention. Stay safe and stay healthy. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nooki, for the speech. We would like to invite Ms. Asdihim bin Asdudrasif, Senior Undersecretary of Sustainable Energy, Ministry of Energy and Natural Resource of Malaysia, the RESSN Chair. Mr. Adihim, are you here?
Yeah, sorry. I'm here.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so the floor is now yours.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you, MC. Dr. Nooki Higuchi, Executive Director of ASEAN Center of Energy ACE, representative from the United Nations Environment Programme, REPP and RESSN Focal Point, senior officials and participants from ASEAN member state, official from ACE, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu Alikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. A very good morning. First and foremost, I'm very sorry. I'm late eventually. I got engaged with our minister just now, so I just came from his room. Let me first welcome all of you to the second series of the ACE-UNEP workshop on accelerating RE through gender responsive policy with the theme enhancing ASEAN Renewable Energy Deployment through Women's Entrepreneurships. The International Energy Agency, IEA, and International Renewable Energy Agency, IRENA, have both conducted studies related to women's participation in the energy sector. IEA concluded that women make up of 22% of the total employment in the energy sector, while IRENA concluded that 32% of women are employed in the RE sector, with majority taking up on non-STEM technical jobs and administration jobs. Among the barriers identified which have contributed to a lower level women's participation includes cultural and social norms, lack of skill and gender-specific training opportunities, and lack of gender-sensitive policies and programs. The findings in both studies are well seen with the recently released ASEAN Gender Outlook, which highlighted that gender inequality is still rampant in various sectors of the economy. The Outlook also emphasized that majority of women are employed in the informal sector and thus depriving them from enjoying the economic benefit of the modernization and economic growth. Although there is a growing effort on ensuring equal footing of both genders, more attention needs to be given to address as well as improve women participation and involvement in the energy sector. Ladies and gentlemen, we, in the opinion, it is vital as this region transition our respective energy sector towards a lower carbon system, and as we strive in achieving our energy goal of the 23% renewable energy in total primary energy supply and 35% renewable energy in power capacity, the multiplier effect of such progression must be just and inclusive without leaving behind or making anyone worse off. Therefore, the organization of this workshop, which focuses on women and entrepreneurships, is timely as the ASEAN region pursue and embark on its journey for a just, inclusive, sustainable, and low-carbon energy transition. It is also my earnest hope that the outcome of this workshop will provide valuable inputs and key takeaways in determining the policy framework and the development of our very own roadmap on accelerating ASEAN renewable energy deployment through gender-responsive energy policy. I would like to as well take this opportunity to thank the United Nations Environment Programme for collaborating with ACE in mainstreaming the perspective on energy and gender in this region. I believe the overwhelming response to our previous workshop is a testament that this issue on energy and gender equality is a critical subject which is gaining traction and needed appropriate attention. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to wish you all a fruitful deliberation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Asdi Hill, for the inspiring opening speech. So for now, before proceeding to the next sections, we are going to spend a bit time to take a group photo session. So I would like to invite all the speakers and participants of our event today to turn on the camera and take your positions. I would like to ask Ms. Hiromi, could you turn off the slide and have us take the photo, please? Thank you. Ms. Hiromi, are you here?
Yes, I am here.
Okay, so I think everyone is already, let's wait so everyone can turn on the camera. Okay, Ms. Hiromi, could you help me to take the photos? Thank you so much.
Okay, perhaps I could assist Hiromi again. So in the count of three, in 3, 2, 1, everyone smile. One more. 3, 2, 1, everyone smile. Thank you so much. That's it, Yang. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Amira, and thank you everyone for your kind collaborations. Next, dear all distinguished guests and ladies and gentlemen, I would like to invite Ms. Amira Lucas, the Associate Officers from ACE, to give the introductions of the study, Accelerating ASEAN Renewable Energy Deployment through Gender Responsive Energy Policy Roadmap. Ms. Amira, the floor is yours now.
Okay, thank you so much, Yang, for your introductions, and hopefully everyone is in a good health this morning. Allow me to ask for the organizer to put on my slide to be shared. But before that, thank you so much for all participants, as well as Mr. Asdirhim, Dr. Nooki, Ms. Agnes, as well as Ms. Annette, and all of RESSN, as well as REPP, SSN focal points, and all public participants that has come to today's event. So allow me to just briefly guide you and walk you through on the project that we are going now. And allow me, next. Allow me to just give a brief explanations on what is ACE. ACE is actually an important have an important role in intergovernmental institutions serving the 10 ASEAN member states. Focuses on energy with 3 core functions: the catalyst, knowledge hub, as well as the think tank. And next. And one of the things that guides us is the ASEAN Energy Blueprint, which we call ASEAN Plan of Action on Energy Cooperation, as mentioned by Mr. Astirhim and Dr. Nooki as well, that by taking the theme, enhancing energy connectivity and market integration in ASEAN to achieve the energy security, accessibility, affordability, and sustainability for all. That's why ASEAN Energy Landscape and Aspiration attempts to be more inclusive and prosper for ASEAN communities. Next. And it is also apparent through last year ASEAN Ministers on Energy meeting that the 10 ASEAN member states declared the support of any concrete actions of inclusive and just energy transitions to develop robust policies and measures to enhance energy resiliency and security, which in this case by the renewable energies projects and plans. And on its joint declarations on energy security and energy transitions on the last year joint ministerial statement, it shows that ASEAN determinations to explore innovative approaches to fulfill the regional target to lowering emissions of the energy system. Next. So as you can see here that the ASEAN is currently have a regional target we're set in 23%, but as you can see, the actual data that we have recorded is only at 14.2% by 2020, and we only have 3 years apart before the 2025 deadline is coming. And looking at the actual and projection data on the slides, we see that there is a gaps of 8.8% to, despite the rising trends on the capacity, but not on the supply. Next. So the question remains is on next again. Yeah, is on what kind of efforts needed to accelerate the RE deployment. And we see that various of studies already say by bridging gender impediments on the policy level, as well as through gender responsive renewable energy can be one of the prominent solution that ASEAN could explore, which benefits not only its bolstering the RE investment in the region, but also supporting the climate mitigation efforts and promoting gender equity. And in addition, ASEAN also have provided the policy basis and adequate support to this underexplored lever, which highlighted a proper, inclusive, gender and climate responsive approach. And next. Yeah, and we see that there is a potential of snowballing effects that could be explored by the ASEAN. So by having a gender responsive RE policy, we also enable women participation in RE development, improve responsiveness to the needs of people and communities, effectively improve economy, sustainability and inclusivity, and also catalyzing equal access of women. Next. So by considering that early awareness and consider gender norms, we are looking at ASEAN renewable energy policy to advance or even to move forward by having a gender responsive policy. Next. So as an important first step of RE and gender approach in the ASEAN, we will explore together with the objective of accelerating renewable energy, ACE and UNEP team up to provide a guidance in the regional level to incorporate gender responsive policy by releasing a roadmap plan, which we plan to launch it in June 2022. So all of your insights as well as your support will be beneficial for us in order to have a more high quality output. Next. So just for overview, what's the workshop is all about, and then what is the expert relevance for today's workshop. We have 2 panel sessions today, and I hope all of participants could actually engage and ask many questions to all of these experts so that we can actually explore more and understand more. The first session would actually talks about the rationale of why we need to talk about women entrepreneurships in order in the importance to the RE deployment, whether it has some benefits that we could actually tap into. And then the second session, we are going to talk about the potential challenges and some best practices that will be shared as well by all of the excellent speakers that we have today. So I think I would just stop talking and just directly go to have our sessions today. So if you have any questions to all these speakers, please let us know. And then we will see you again during the Q&A session. I think that's all from my presentation. Thank you so much for everyone's attention. I will send it back to Giang as an MC. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Amira, for the very informative presentations. Next, I would like to introduce Ms. Soma Dutta, a Senior Technical Officer from Energia, to deliver the presentations. Women's Entrepreneurship in Renewable Energies ASEAN Context, the rationale. Ms. Soma Dutta is an independent consultant working on cost-cutting issues on gender poverty and development in terms of energy access. She has supported policymakers, practitioners, governments, and international organizations in project planning, socio-economic, institutional, and policy analysis and capacity building. She is currently a member of advisory group and a senior technical advisor at Energia, an international network on gender and sustainable energy. Ms. Soma Dutta, the floor is now yours, and you are going to have 10 minutes for your presentations. Please.
I'm very pleased to present to you the work of the Energy International Secretariat under implementation area number 2, improving the enabling environment for gender equality and women's empowerment.
Hiromi, let me share the slides, please. Okay. Yeah, thank you. We can go to the outline slide.
Okay.
You can go to the outline slide, please.
Okay, I will share your screen.
I don't know if I can't see my slides. Shall I share?
Yes, please go ahead.
Next slide, please. Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon. Thanks a lot to the officials of the ASEAN Center for Energy and UNEP, and also the ASEAN member states who are here today. So I represent Energia, and I'm going to talk about the opportunities for women in the RE sector, the challenges, some of the experiences and lessons and way forward. Next slide. The context is basically governed by the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, which we're all familiar with. But two things I want to highlight there is the centrality of energy, which is SDG 7, and centrality of SDG 5, and also the close interlinkage between the various SDGs, which has been highlighted. And of course, leaving no one behind, which is also very much in line with the ASEAN member states' commitment to just and inclusive transition. Interestingly, there has been a lot of progress in energy access, especially in the Asian region. The gaps that stand out is the rural-urban divide, and also the fact that clean cooking has actually fallen behind the population increase. And both of these are extremely relevant for women and extremely relevant also for entrepreneurship. Next, please. Okay, so there are several reasons why today like never before. And I think the kind of change in scene we have seen in the last 10 years has also been unprecedented, led largely by a huge proliferation of decentralized energy, primarily photovoltaic. We've seen a 60 to 70%, in fact, 80% cost reduction in photovoltaic. as a result of which a large number of people have been able to access off-grid RE solutions. In fact, RE solutions are not only popular in rural, but also as backup in urban areas. The result in future, over 50% of future energy access is likely to come from RE. This is also because what we are really left with is the remote and rural areas. We've also seen a lot of new business models coming up in terms of reaching the what is called the proverbial last mile. And women's entrepreneurship, next slide, please. And women's entrepreneurship is one such, where women are largely being encouraged to join as entrepreneurs, but also as enterprises and businesses that are using energy and who can benefit from renewable. And I think we're familiar, but there are a number of reasons why this makes sense. Firstly, we know that the of working with women is huge. When you put money in a woman's hand, it is almost always used for social gains and for community benefit, like children's education, health, family well-being, which has huge intergenerational benefits. From a business perspective, we've seen that women, because of their close networks and their trust-based relationship with people at the last mile, they're able to reach markets that never be able to. And we've seen this in multiple cases. Sadly, what we still see is that women represent 32 with the traditional energy sectors is good. Nonetheless, when you break down this 32%, you see that majority of this is concentrated in administrative and support services. So, which means that entrepreneurship is definitely has something which we need to promote. And second is even the employment pattern within enterprises, within businesses, within large energy companies is something that needs to be looked at. Next, please. However, we see that women's enterprises are hindered by several factors, and majority of these, especially in Asia, are really governed, and they're coming from the social and cultural norms we have and the lack of resources. Whether it is access to land and property, which is still skewed in many countries, which leads to a lack of access to financial and business services, which leads to, in part, lack of education, training, and information. We've also seen that in many countries, women's businesses are largely informal. And what this means is left out of extension and business development services, they also get left out of a large number of government supports that's available. In fact, in the COVID, reasons showed that because they were not formalized and they were not sort of in the government registers, they could not access funds. They could not access bank funds. So business formalization is a huge gap. And finally, we, of course, have discriminatory laws, regulations, etc. Talk a little bit about Energea's experience. Energea is an international network working on gender and sustainable energy. And one of its programs, next slide. One of its programs is called Women's Economic Empowerment Program. It was launched in 2014 and currently works with over 8,000 entrepreneurs and has come up with a range of business models, experiences, which I don't have the time to go into now, but I'll just touch upon some of those. Next slide. Like I said, the V approach uses a demand and supply side approach, and it works with women's mostly small enterprises, small and micro enterprises, which are selling all kinds of energy services, but they're also working with what is called the PUE, which is productive use of energy, that's supporting women to gain from energy services in their other businesses of horticulture, of agriculture, and whatever else. We've also seen what this leads to is that people who would not have energy access otherwise gain energy access, and that itself leads to a process of, Energy has been able to reach about 6 million people so far through this this model. Next slide. The model is very simple. It is basically a comprehensive model that deals with all aspects of business, whether it is including the traditional support package of technical business, but what we've also find, especially in the case of women's enterprises, is that leadership and agency, the drive to go and do something, the confidence to go and talk to a supplier, say, to go outside your own village and talk to other people to sell your products is very, very important. So agency and leadership is an important part. We've also seen that ongoing mentoring, which is supporting the enterprise or entrepreneur for at least a period of 1 year, is extremely important. Access for finance, and very, very important is the enabling environment. From next slide, from quick lessons, you can look at the slides later. But one thing we have seen that it's not necessary that you have to have a high level of education, a good entrepreneur. Women who are part of social networks, who are part of groups, work very well. In teaching entrepreneurship, I said that supporting each other is very good. Agency and leadership is extremely useful. Mentorship is very useful. Next slide. It's almost like the break and make or break for women's enterprises. We've also seen that women are extremely good at trust-based selling, and so demonstration-based selling, where they know the client, works very well. Locally based suppliers with good distribution network, of course. Related must is access to some kind of transportation. That really makes a difference for women, because majority of women actually don't have access to their own controlled transportation services. Access to finance is, of course, very, very important, but it is not the silver bullet. It must be accompanied by a comprehensive package of support services, mentorship, etc., for it to work well. Next slide. At this point, I mean, with all of these lessons, there are a number of opportunities. The first is that the demand for decentralized is really, really increasing. And it's likely to, that's likely to remain the same. Which means opportunities in multiple sectors, opportunities in multiple sectors like technical support, after-sales services, installation, maintenance, all of that. It also, at this point, there's also, because of the costs coming down, there's also a big potential for productive use of energy. Irrigation pumps, cold chambers, fishing lights, all of this, refrigeration for food processing, agriculture processing, all of that. We've also seen that digital transformation is going to be very, very big coming forward. In fact, it's not really going to be an option. We'll all have to move towards digitalization. COVID has taught us what it can achieve, and if you don't have digitalization, what you lose. So the entire package of digitalization, of using it for business purposes, is going to be very important. Next slide. There are multiple areas where women have in the entire value chain, whether it is as users, as people in households that actually control and govern energy purchase decisions, whether as employees, whether as other key members in the entire value chain, or whether it is the decision makers and stakeholders. So these are the multiple layers and levels that we must work on. It's not enough just to take one aspect of it, or one cog of this wheel, if I may call it, to work on. Next slide. And a very
4 key elements of the enabling environment.
Next slide, please.
In order to...
Yeah. So I just wanted to highlight a little bit about the enabling environment bit. That there are several aspects of enabling environment which are important, and that I think is especially of special importance to the ASEAN Center for Energy and the member states, because that's completely essential for sustainability. So we've also seen just a few lessons closing now. There's definitely a need for organizations that are working on women's enterprise development. What I mean by that is that not work on one aspect of it, but to work on the complete package, which helps transform gender relations, which helps women gain energy assets, and help them to move up and change the gender relations. important for that is to work on resilience. Not just growth, but resilience as well, to make sure that they don't fall out when there's some kind of an economic, environmental, or business shock. Access to finance is important. We've also seen that engaging men and families is very important, especially for a sustainability perspective. I've already talked about enabling environment, partnership, because when you're working, especially on productive use of energy, you're not working only on energy, but you're also working on agriculture and all of these multiple things. You need finance, you need access to markets, you need to be able to engage with the local policy because you can access resources for them, which is why multiple partnerships at various levels is very, very important. And finally, I'd like to say that whenever we plan economic empowerment programs, let's really not look at 1 year, 6 months, 2-year programs, because that really need funds, you need support, you need a comprehensive package to run through several years and a dedicated support for that. So I think with that, I'll stop and
thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Ms. Soma, for the very excellent speech. And you have emphasized on the importance of women's entrepreneurship in energy transitions in local communities. So we will now move on to the next sections named Green Jobs, ASEAN Renewable Energy and Gender, delivered by Ms. Joni Simpson, Senior Specialist in Gender Equality and Non-Discriminations of ILO as East and Southeast Asia and the Pacific. In the current role, Ms. Joni has provided technical guidance and support on gender equality, non-discriminations on women's economic empowerment approach to ILO constituents and partners for policies and programs related to gender inclusivity and non-discriminations in workplace. She had had over 20 years of promoting women's leaderships and was previously ILO's global coordinator and specialist in women entrepreneurship development and entrepreneurship education in Geneva. Ms. Joni, the floor is now yours.
Thank you so much. And it's a real honor to be here during this discussion. And I'm already very interested in what has been said so far. I will be speaking about the world of work more generally, as well as women's entrepreneurship. I'm not an expert in energy, renewable energy. I have a colleague who is a green jobs expert, but I've been brought in today to talk more generally about gender equality. And as you may or may not know, the ILO, the International Labour Organization, is the oldest UN agency. We are also different in that we are a tripartite organization for the world of work. We are let's say the founders of decent work. We have a decent work agenda. So we are looking at promoting conditions of work being improved, promoting employment, full and productive employment, promoting social dialogue, and we utilize international labor standards, which are built by governments, employers, and workers to try to provide also guidance on standards, minimal standards across the globe on things that relate to work. So I'll be talking a bit about some of the recommendations, some of the knowledge we have in terms of what works on gender equality at work and what are some of the unfinished issues that need to be taken into account. And I'll talk somewhat as well about the enabling environment for women's entrepreneurship development. Next slide, please. So just coming to this unfinished business, a lot of progress has been made in the world of work in some fronts, in particular in education. So women are getting higher levels of education, going into different sectors through education. But what we're finding is that that is not always translating into actual output or benefits for women. For example, studying in the renewable energy fields, but then not either not getting in or not staying in the workplace in the energy sector. So there's something happening there, and there's some stubborn areas that have not budged that slow our progress on gender equality at work. And this is critical if we're talking about a sector. So the benefits of gender equality are broadly known, but it's worth a quick reminder specifically on women's enterprises. When they're supported, they contribute to gender equality, employment creation, expanding the pool of human resources and talents, economic growth, and poverty reduction. There's also ample evidence of the benefits of having more women in leadership in business and on all levels, which will lead to not only better policies and solutions at the top level, national level, but also at the company level, leading to higher productivity and profitability of enterprises. And certainly having more women involved in renewable sector can bring multiple benefits, not only as women take up higher paid and higher skilled opportunities, but they will be able to then influence the services, the products, and et cetera, to ensure they are relevant to the users. And having more women all along the renewable energy value chain will mean more women employed in the sector, as women tend to hire more diverse teams. But there are these persistent barriers to gender equality at work still remaining. And as was already mentioned, it seems like women can get in certain jobs and tasks within the renewable energy sector, for example, admin or perhaps in sales, but not necessarily in the top or the highly skilled or the highly paid jobs. So there's an issue of a glass ceiling happening there. And we need to be looking at occupational segregation, for example, as one element, but there are others. And as we know, and as was also mentioned by the previous speaker, no, there is no silver bullet. This is also relevant for gender equality at work. It won't happen with a single intervention. There are intersecting issues with and various circumstances among women and among women entrepreneurs. And here we'll see that there are gender stereotypes at play. There's occupational segregation happening, both in education choices, but also then in job choices. There's skills upgrading and equal opportunities needing to happen, and women are not always accessing those opportunities. I'd like to pick up on one of the top, I would say the top obstacle and lever for women getting in, staying in, and advancing in the workplace, be they a worker or an entrepreneur. Caregiving and family responsibilities play the top role. And this is particular here in Asia and the Pacific. It's lower priority in some other regions, but it's very much top lever or obstacle. And this is important that we take note of this. Change slides, please. And this is why I wanted to have a full slide on the issue of work-family balance. So you might say, what does this have to do with enhancing the deployment of renewable energies through women's entrepreneurship? Well, because this is the top obstacle for women in Asia Pacific regarding work, women dedicate an average of 3 times more time to care work and domestic chores on a daily basis than men. So they're often facing time poverty due to this disproportionate care burden. And having more enabling policies and programs on this front and on all levels, including through service provision, care service, childcare, long-term care, policies that help manage work and family balance at the workplace level and on the national level, can help women in their ability to dedicate time and effort to consolidate and grow their businesses, or to move up in this instance where they are working inside of an energy-related business. And maternity is a time often when women pay a motherhood penalty in the workforce. And as we can see from what's on the screen here, that there are actually very few countries, although there are big pieces of color there are very few countries that actually provide maternity protection to self-employed women. meaning that they are going to have to leave their business and not have any source of revenue during that time. Some of them end up closing or anyways facing a very important penalty in that regard. And this translates over to the workplace too, where women carry a motherhood penalty all along their careers. So addressing this issue is not only an essential thing to look at, and in terms of the sector, this can be done in different ways, and I'll talk about them in a few moments, but we need to keep this in mind because it is really the top obstacle. Next slide, please. So getting into some of the things that we know in terms of gender equality at work, it's not yet been achieved. In fact, there is a widening of inequalities right now because of COVID, so and which has had disproportionate impacts on women. So we need to keep in mind the broader context, because we may be putting in place policies, but they may not be having the same impacts for women or for men because of these other surrounding issues that are influencing women's ability to access, advance, and sustain their businesses. So this is why we can't ignore this broader context. And at the national level, we need to expand policies providing adequate maternity, paternity, and paid care leave, and promoting more balanced sharing of work and family responsibilities, including for self-employed. This can also be through promoting work-family responsibilities among women and men, because men are one of the key stakeholders to be taking up and sharing that disproportionate burden. So that's one of the key areas, and that's one of the main reasons why women don't have enough time to spend on their businesses or to upgrade their skills and advance in the economy. Another is promoting job creation and lifelong learning policies that close gender skill gaps and combat gender stereotypes, in particular in green and tech sectors. So we need to look at lifelong learning approaches so we can upgrade. We also need to increase women's voice representation and leadership at all levels of policy and decision-making, including through social dialogue where decisions are being made, and so that they reflect the needs and solutions that bring in that diversity and gender diversity can bring to the table. We need to remove legal and other types of discriminatory barriers to entry and advancement into education, training, employment, and careers, including by combating gender stereotypes and gender-based violence and harassment at work. And we know that where one gender is concentrated in a sector, this is usually a higher risk to violence and harassment at work. And we've seen through COVID and just before and moving forward that violence and harassment at work, and in particular gender-based violence and harassment, is a critical issue needing addressing. It is often an issue for women to leave a sector or leave their job or be discouraged because they think they will be facing this issue. We also need to ensure just energy transition in the broader energy sector, and thinking of this by applying guidance under the Just Transition guidelines that look towards the many millions of jobs and livelihoods being disrupted by these important transitions toward renewable energies. But who will benefit in the end? Will there be equitable benefits on the upcoming opportunities? And this depends on us. Needless to say, these Just Transition guidelines from the ILO provide some guidance. Next slide, please. So coming to more of the women's entrepreneurship, there's a lot of effort put on capacity building of women to overcome the persistent barriers they face. However, we need this to go hand in hand with investing and making sure that the enabling ecosystems that support the promotion of entrepreneurship and renewable energy sector are gender responsive and supportive to women in all their diversity. So here are a few ways: by implementing gender responsive value chain analysis so that more women can integrate and upgrade through the energy value chain and generate a virtuous cycle of having more women on all levels of the sector can then create a better environment for all. ensuring that policymakers promote gender responsive policies and programs and identify the barriers and levers that will enable more women entrepreneurs to access these emerging opportunities, including through procurement processes, funding measures, and tracking results for women entrepreneurs. Also making women's entrepreneurship development an explicit priority in the renewable energy sectoral policy. This will open opportunities to address the specific needs of women entrepreneurs, ensuring that service providers supporting the sector's emergence are gender responsive and relevant to women entrepreneurs' needs, as well as the relevant financial and non-financial business service development providers. And promoting enterprise models that enable women entrepreneurs to achieve economies of scale, such as cooperative enterprises. We find that these are women-friendly enterprises, and in the renewable energy sector, cooperative enterprises have a number of competitive advantages, including democratic local control over energy production and use, the capacity to create local employment and reasonable pricing, as well as being more inclusive of women in terms of collectively organizing work and resources. Then we need to look at role models of women entrepreneurs working through and with women entrepreneurs associations, and they can be important partners in outreach to women entrepreneurs, and for example, to organize or co-implement an awards program to recognize and celebrate the achievements of women entrepreneurs in the renewable sector. And I'd like to also point out the importance of employer and business membership organizations who can be strong advocates and partners and a voice for more inclusive policies for women entrepreneurs. And through our experiences working with service providers in country contexts, we've been supporting service providers to undertake what is called a WeCheck, a women's entrepreneurship check, to identify the relevant areas for improvement on gender equality, not only to attract more women entrepreneurs to their services, but also to ensure that they are responsive to their strategic needs. And another one is our sectoral WED assessment, which looks at WED through an integrated perspective to bring through recommendations on access to markets, BDS provision, access to finance and such, to make sure that the sector is taking the steps to make it more inclusive as an entrepreneurial ecosystem. And finally, and last slide, I'd like to say that there are lots of resources out there. I think that it's important to work together. There's no one answer, but we know that if dedicated actions aren't taken, inequalities will continue to widen. It won't just happen. So it's really important to work together, to take action, and to ensure that women and women entrepreneurs are able to contribute to this important sector. And we have a unique opportunity when working on emerging sectors to set things right and provide opportunities for more inclusive growth and prosperity. And I've put here a number of ILO resources that I've mentioned and that may be of interest. So I look forward to the discussion, and I'd like to hand over now to the moderator. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Johnny, for the very insightful presentations. So now I think that after the presentations from three guest speakers in our event today, you already have an understanding of the women entrepreneurship in energy sectors. So for now, I'm gonna move on to the Q&A and discussion sections, which will be moderated by Ms. Amira. Ms. Amira, the floor is now yours.
Okay, thank you so much, Yang. May I invite Ms. Soma and Ms. Johnny first to turn on their camera so that we could actually kind of like have some discussions. We have here one questions that already have here. So, but before we begin, I would like to invite all of participants, focal points of ASEAN member states. If you have any questions, please feel free to write down your questions on the chat box so that we can actually kind of like have some triggered questions on that. So this one question is presented by Ms. Piromia. She said, could you please give an example of intersecting issues for entrepreneurs? So probably in a short part, Ms. Soma and Ms. Johnny, perhaps Ms. Soma first.
Okay, thank you very much. Very relevant question because there are a lot of intersecting issues. And what we find, especially in Asia, is that a lot of them emerge from gender norms, which leads to the basic issue of acceptance of a woman working, going outside home, which really affects how she transacts her business. The other important intersecting property ownership of land and how this affects entrepreneurship is that firstly, the premises itself. And the second is that when you don't have access to your financial resources, then you're very limited in the kind of loans that you can get because you cannot provide collateral. When you cannot get finance, when you cannot get loans, what it means is that your access to whether it is new technology, whether it is inventory, whether it is upgradation of your business skills, all of that is limited. So that's another cross-cutting formalization of businesses. As long as businesses remain informal, they are out of the ambit of a lot of support that's possible. That's another. In fact, a very important policy issue is the discriminatory laws that still persist in many countries. Is that women need to provide additional documentation to open a bank account, etc., etc. So what all of this means is that in addition to hardcore business issues, there are a number of surrounding issues, including caregiving and the work that women do at home. A lot of surrounding issues which must be addressed if women are to succeed. So we have to look at the whole basket, which is why we talk about intersecting issues.
Okay, so thank you so much, Ms. Salma. Perhaps in brief, Ms. Johnny, could you respond to that question?
I think Ms. Soma has done a really great job on addressing many of the issues, but I'd like to bring in another element of what intersecting means and raise the issue of intersecting characteristics of women entrepreneurs. And for example, women entrepreneur who is from a migrant community or who is from an indigenous community or lives with a disability. So I'd like to raise that issue as well or is from a rural area. There are different intersecting elements that we need to keep in mind when we're building our policies to remember that not all women entrepreneurs or all entrepreneurs are the same, and they may need one further element or several as a support mechanism to bridge the gaps between gender and indigenous status or others. So I'd like to, in addition, raise the issue on that element of intersectionality, if that's okay.
Yes, I hope that answers Ms. Piromya's questions. Yeah. So we have another questions that is like very, I think very important to discuss here. Is actually coming from Ms. Eva Wulandari. She wanted to ask questions to Ms. Soma. The question is, could you describe whether women entrepreneurs also have problem in regards to have financial access for the working capital as well as any kind of finance that will make their business sustained, perhaps? You can respond to that, Ms. Soma, first.
Absolutely. I mean, I said access to finance is not a silver bullet, but it is one of the, what I meant by saying that is that you need to do several other things. But on access to finance itself, it's a very big bottleneck that I think small businesses across the world face, and women in particular. So what one can do about that then? One is the small savings and credits organizations that women are part of. You can access them. Now the problem typically is that the amount of money they have is typically very small to finance businesses. So what can be done is to link them with local finance institutions. Second is to work with finance institutions themselves. These are cooperatives, but these are also larger microfinance organizations like Cori, Famiga, the big global ones, impact investors to build their confidence that women's enterprises are actually less risky than others. So that is working on the other side. You also need to help or assist financial institutions to develop specific loan products. So we need to And that is unique patterns that are linked to agricultural income, for example. Sales is not necessarily a monthly or a quarterly or a biannual payment. So payment cycles have to be linked to that. And I think one very important thing is to have some kind of a contingency fund, a COVID fund, for example, because COVID came in, a COVID fund which helps which helps women tide over unexpected exigencies and emergencies, especially from a financial perspective. So I'll stop there. Thanks.
Oh yeah,
Mute
Ms.
and-
Johnny. Yeah, thank you. Perhaps
Yes,
Ms. Johnny's response?
Yes, please. And I'd like to reaffirm as well what has been said there on funds. Contingency fund, social protection measures have been essential during COVID, and governments have tried very hard to get funds in the hands of people in order that they are able to, and to businesses in order to continue their operations or manage such detrimental impacts on their businesses. I'd like to come back to say, removing those discriminatory practices, there are still legal issues in many countries that stop women from accessing finance in the same way as men, in terms of how they are able to get resources that can be used as collateral, but also in terms of having to have someone sign for them, or that kind of thing still exists, unfortunately. And discriminatory practices happen at the bank as well. Women often will face attitudes towards being a woman as an entrepreneur, being a young woman entrepreneur. When we see there are a lot of young women entrepreneurs in the region. I would also I mentioned this WeCheck that we've done. We've seen it can make very important impacts inside of service providers, including banks, on doing their internal checks and finding out what solutions they need to put in place, what tweaks they need to make happen in order to make their services, their establishment, their policies more gender responsive. And I hope some of the people will take a look at that
Sure.
resource that I put at the end.
Yes. Okay. So I guess although there are lots of questions that we would like to ask in the sessions, I apologize that I think we need to move forwards because we also have another 3 amazing speakers as well waiting for us. And if you have any questions on all participants indicated to Ms. Soma and Ms. Johnny, please feel free to write down your questions. I guess while we are on the session today, they are going to be willing to entertain your questions as well as perhaps later on the next Q&A sessions. So thank you so much, Ms. Soma and Ms. Johnny. We will get back to you soon. So I'll pass it back to Zhang. Thank you.
Thank you so much, all the speakers, and for your very active discussions. And thank you to all participations for your questions. So I would like to move on to our next presentations, which is enhancing equality in energy for Southeast Asia, challenges and interventions, presented by Mr. Khanram Indra, the Chief of Party from USA's Enhancing Equality in Energy for Southeast Asia. So Mr. Khanram Indra is responsible for managing our activities in Southeast Asia to identify challenges and implement solutions for gender equality in the energy sectors. He previously served as the director of Asia region for the Rockefeller Foundations and country representative in Thailand for Global Green Growth Institutes. Mr. Khanram Indra, the floor is now yours.
Thank you very much for the introduction. As you kindly introduced, my name is Khan Ramindra, Chief of Party for the Enhancing Equality in Energy for Southeast Asia project, or E4C in short. I'm with Core International, which is the prime contractor for this project. Okay, next slide, please. As we heard from the previous presentations, there are a lot of challenges for gender equality in the energy sector. But anyway, please allow me to add one more information here. As you can see the bar charts on the right-hand side of the presentation, these are the share of women workforce in several sectors. On the top, you see that healthcare, women are around 60%, which is great, and education around 60% as well. That is great as well. But if you look down at the bottom, you see energy and mining, which is the sector of our focus. We only have a 25% of women workforce. This figure also in line with data from ARENA and IEA that the previous presenter presented before. And although these figures come from the World Economic Forum from 2017, which is quite like 5 years ago, but when we talk to energy companies in the region, we found that these numbers still are valid. So we found that roughly around 24% to 35% of workforce is still women. But sadly, I mean, most women are not in the board of management or management position. Most of them are in like supporting position, for example, admin or HR. And this is one of the challenge that why we need to have this project. Okay, next slide, please. To address all the challenges that we heard so far, USAID, a regional development mission for Asia, which is based in Bangkok, and their regional mission working across Asia, they launched this E4C project in 2020. This is a regional project, a 3-year regional project, starting from year 2020 and last until year 2023. And we right now halfway through already. This project value is around 9 million. And the ultimate objective of this project is to enhance opportunities and women and girls in Southeast Asia, particularly in energy sector. And under that, we have like 3 sub-goals. The first one is to increase workplace diversity. The second one is to promote inclusive workplace environment. And the last one is to promote equitable promotion opportunities. And we work in 5 ASEAN countries, which are Indonesia, Laos, Philippines, Thailand, and Vietnam. But so far, we have been focusing our effort on Thailand, Philippines, and Indonesia, and we plan to expand our project in Laos, to Laos and Vietnam pretty soon. Next slide, please. And under our project, we have like 5 different project components or objectives. The first one is identify core challenges. So before we deliver our intervention, we want to make sure that we understand the gender equality challenge in the region well enough. So we have a lot of activities to help us better understand the challenge, which I will talk about it in a minute. And after that, for objective 2, this work focus on the supply side of women workforce. For this one, we are partnering with leading tertiary academic institutions or university in the region to increase the number of women and girls pursuing career in energy sector, particularly on a STEM subject. For objective 3 and 4, for these 2 objectives, we work on the demand side of the workforce equation. So for these 2 objectives, we are partnering with leading energy companies in the region, which I will share the list with you in a minute, to increase the recruitment, retention, and promotion of women in the energy sector. At the same time, we realize that increase the number is not enough, so we need to increase their opportunity as well. That's why we have Audit 4 to increase mentorship and leadership opportunities. As Johnny pointed out earlier, that there is no like silver bullet to address this gender equality challenge. So our approach to work with those partners are like very tailor-made. So when we partner with certain company or academic institution, we will sit down with them, try to understand their challenge and priorities. And after that, we will deliver some kind of tailor-made intervention for each one of them. And for objective 5, this is more like a cross-cutting, is include enhanced communication, collaboration, and learning. Okay, next slide, please. Oh, okay, these are the list of our current partners in the region at the moment, as of now. On the left-hand side is our partner from energy companies, and on the right-hand side is from academic institution. On the left-hand side for energy companies, we are partnering with 7 leading energy companies in the region. In Indonesia, we are working with Pertamina, a state-owned oil and gas company there, and we work with Geodipa, geothermal company in Indonesia. In the Philippines, we work with IPP there, VGen and First Gen. At the same time, we are partnering with EDC, Energy Development Corporation, which is the second largest geothermal company in the world. In Thailand, we are partnering with Energy Absolute and Be Green Power. Energy Absolute is a leading renewable energy company in the region, and they just launched the largest EV battery manufacturing in the region. And also Be Green is one of the largest IPP in Thailand. And on the right-hand side, these are the list of our partner. For example, in Laos, we will be partner with the National University of Laos. And in Indonesia, we have partners with ITPLN, University of Pertamina. And in the Philippines, we have partnered with USTP, University of Science and Technology of Southern Philippines. And in Thailand, we are working with Chulalongkorn University, Thammasat University, Prince of Songkhla, and Siam Tech College. So in our approach, as I mentioned before, we have a tailor-made approach. So we will work with them, try to understand their challenge. And then we have a laundry list of intervention where we can try to match them with their needs for each organization. Okay, next slide, please. So as I mentioned in my previous slide on the project components, that on identify core challenge, I'd like to draw your attention to our report on assessment of women's participation in energy sector in Southeast Asia, or we call it in short, assessment report. This report aims to provide side of background and comprehensive analysis on the current gender challenge in the region, as well as opportunities, how E4C and other development partners can address those challenges. So in terms of methodologies, as you can see here, we have a lot of tasks here. We had the 2 rounds of desk research on gender activities across the region that include works from several development agencies, for example, UN, GIZ, ADB. And at the same time, we have around 50 in-depth interviews with targeted stakeholders in the region, especially in those 3 countries of our focus, Thailand, Philippines, and Indonesia. And also we had around 30 focus group discussion with a group of student, energy company employee, with university and energy employee, energy company employer as well. And after that, we want to make sure that we understand some kind of general perception in terms of gender equality. So we conduct kind of phone-based citizen survey in the 3 countries with almost 1,400 participants. Try to understand their perspective in terms of gender challenge and what are their views in terms of women's, in terms of role of men, some kind of that. And this report is in the kind of final stage. The draft is under review by USAID and should be ready for distribution pretty soon. But anyway, please allow me to share some of the highlights here. Next slide, please. Okay, overall, we found that ASEAN countries have made significant progress compared to other regions. As of last year, nearly 70% of overall gender gaps has been closed. Among ASEAN countries, we found that Philippines is the most progressive one. They have successfully achieved their goals in closing gender gaps and have reached highest rank in Southeast Asia. And other countries followed by Laos, Singapore, Thailand, Vietnam, and Indonesia. Okay, for some of the highlights from our study, we found that there are fewer female students who choose to study science, technology, engineering, and math STEM compared to social science. But good news is that the share of female students in STEM is increasing. And some of the reasons for lower participation of female STEM subjects are lack of financial resources, scarcity of scholarship, and importantly, cultural bias that favor boys over girls to pursue engineering and technical education. For number 3, we found that information on educational opportunities, career guidance, networking, and other resource on education and career prospect in engineering area and energy is not sufficient. This is still room for improvement. And last one on this, we found that there is an insufficient representation of women engineering and female technical staff in energy sector workplace. This result in the lack of female role model and inspiration for women and girls to pursue STEM subject. But from this challenge, we found that this provides us with opportunities to work on a training of the trainer on unconscious bias training, school engagement, and career advisory and mentorship program. I mean, these are some of our intervention anyway. And next slide, please. In terms of energy companies, we found that there are many women in energy sector, especially engineers, decide to leave their jobs to meet the needs of their family. Moreover, women's reproductive role is often used as a basis for discriminate against their leadership position. For number 6, we found that most heavy industry and energy companies prefer men rather than women due to nature of heavy labor jobs and strong technical skill requirement in different energy operation. This incentivizes girls to pursue STEM and energy sector careers. From our discussion with energy companies, we also found that some other companies prefer to have like male colleagues because some other work, for example, business development, they need to kind of go out with their client to have like drinks. So they think that men might serve better for this kind of job. For number 7, we found that most countries in the region have law and policy that prohibit discrimination against women. However, policy to promote leadership and career advancement for women is still not sufficient. So for this employment aspect, we found that this challenge provides with opportunities to work on like social media and outreach campaign, leadership development, and others. And next slide, please. And in terms of regional aspect, we found that while there are different levels of policy reform and gender planning at the individual country level, however, regional harmonization of gender policy and gender and climate change is largely lacking and need to be strengthened through innovative and regional program. And that's the summary of our assessment report. And next slide, please. Yes, that's all of my presentation. If you have any questions or comments, I mean, you can save it and we can discuss during the Q&A session. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kanran Indra, for your presentations. So next, because we are quite in a limited time, I would like to invite Ms. Monica Madagwarati, the technical officers from Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency from ACE. Miss Monica, are you here? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
the floor is yours now.
Yeah. Hello. Thank you, Zhang, for the opportunity. Hello, good morning from Jakarta. I am Monica Merdekawati. It is my pleasure to share the key insights of the ASEAN Energy and Gender Report, focusing on the development finance within the next 15 minutes. Next slide, please. The outline slide. Yeah, okay, thank you. So let's begin with the overview of the contents of this report. It comprises of the 4 main topics. There are the interplay between gender equality, energy access, and also economic empowerment. This section is to emphasize the importance of discussing energy and gender programs. The second is the success stories of energy and gender access programs in ASEAN. From the third section, we will look into the flow of development finance that are dedicated for the energy and gender programs in ASEAN. Then in the last part, we compare the gap with other regions. Next slide, please. To start with, I would like to introduce the background of this initiative, which is supported by the ASEAN Climate Change and Energy Project, or ACEP. Similar to this collaboration between ACE and UNEP, the background is that the ASEAN Ministers of Energy meeting last year, that noting the regional priority to enhance energy resilience and improve energy security transform the inclusive and just energy transition. This aspiration complements the statement in the ASEAN Summit in 2020, in which the ASEAN leaders also affirmed the gender equality as an important part for achieving the sustainable development. And FORACCEP itself has promoted the importance of women empowerment in energy sector since 2019 through various initiatives. In 2020, the project achieved a higher share of women researchers, up from 50% at the beginning of the project. Last year, senior female government officials from the ASEAN's 10 ministries of energy, along with the Norway's Minister of Petroleum and Energy, contributed their perspectives on the vital role of women in ASEAN's energy transition, which can be accessed in this link provided here. Next slide, please. So many of us must have been already realized, perhaps through our mother, that woman is the center of the economy, starting from the smallest unit of community family. Women are the caretakers who are responsible for the education and health of the children through cooking, cleaning, studying, and etc., which all require energy. Many studies have been carried out to help us understand this correlation between women's access to energy and poverty, including the recent report, ASEAN Gender Outlook report, that was presented, I believe, in the first edition of ACE-UNEP workshop last month. A few indicators that I would like to highlight from the report are the third of ASEAN people still lack of clean cooking fuels, and in ASEAN's total labor force, the participation rate of women was only 56% compared to 79% for men. Of employed women, 67% work in the informal sector and 3% live below the poverty line. In energy sector, the employment rate of women is even lower. Only 8% are engaged in the production of crude oil, petroleum products, and natural gas. In other words, few women gain economic benefits from the fossil fuel industry despite the rapid growth of the energy demand. So from this statistic, when we think the other way around, providing clean energy access to women offers potential multiplier effects, whereby the role of women could evolve from only a consumer to entrepreneurs and later becoming the leaders as illustrated here. Similar progress could also occur in the energy provision, like starting from small equipment such as kerosene or solar PV lamp or biomass stoves to small rooftop PV panels or mini hybrid electricity genset, and before progressing to the connection to the national grid. Next slide, please. So here is the brief overview of successful energy and gender access programs in ASEAN. Here, the categorization represents the impact of the energy gender programs. First categorization is in Cambodia and Myanmar. The GERES were able to create additional jobs in local community through providing improved cookstoves, which later grows into providing solar home systems and energy efficient appliances. In the second category, in Indonesia, these energy access programs were able to be replicated as a social entrepreneurship, where local nonprofit organizations such as IBEKA, Yayasan Rumah Energi of Biru Program, and Copernic, which supported by Energia, were once started with the development finance to cover the upfront costs, able to develop small-scale energy access programs where they can be capitalized. And the third category, in Philippines and Vietnam, the energy access programs have been able to grow into community-based renewable energy. For instance, in Philippines, a local NGO established micro hydropower community in Tinglayan since 2003, and also in Vietnam, the Green ID piloted the rooftop solar program in 90 households in Hanoi and also in Da Nang since 2018. Next slide, please. So now about the report. Similar to the ASEAN Gender Outlook 2021, unfortunately, our findings indicate that the financing support to energy gender projects is considerably low. Our analysis shows that from the total of $707 million USD was spent for energy and gender programs, between 2010 and 2019, of which it is only 3.3% of total devoted to energy projects, which is equal to 3.3% of total which devoted to energy projects in ASEAN, and only 2.7% of the total for the gender projects. Here, the figure also indicates that significant increase can be observed in the 2019, where the main recipient is Vietnam, and minor shares went to Indonesia and Myanmar. The annual trend indicates that funding to Indonesia was prioritized in early years, but in 2014, most went to Vietnam, while in 2018, the notable increase also can be observed in Myanmar. Next slide, please. So further investigation into their respective objectives indicate that most energy and gender projects were related to the coal-fired power plants. Another 20% went towards the improvement of electricity power transmission and distribution in centralized grids. Next slide, please. To obtain a clearer view of energy and gender access programs, the analysis is extended by omitting those that is dedicated for the coal-fired power plants and the improvement of transmission. Here we would like to focus on the energy generation of multiple renewable technologies, biofuel, hydro, and also solar power plants. The financing of energy generation of multiple renewables was spent mostly in Cambodia, while biofuels in Vietnam, hydro also in Vietnam, and solar power in Myanmar. Next slide, please. And here is the funding for energy and gender access projects could reach $70 million over the last 10 years, or equivalent to the total of categories presented here. And next slide, please. In terms of type of financing instruments, the official development assistance loans dominated with 88.4%, where from 2010 and 2013, ODA grants were the common type of financing until the ODA loans rapidly increased in 2014. In other words, ODA loans were the main contributor to the annual change between 2014 until 2019, of which the big chunk to the Vietnam is come from the ODA loans. Next slide, please. So in terms of donors, energy and gender projects were predominantly supported by bilateral agreements over the past decade. This figure further indicates that bilateral assistance was always the major source, except in the 2014 and 2015. Next slide, please. Here we can see that among those bilateral, Japan was the principal donor over the decade, with significant contributions between 2016 until 2019. In the second place was Germany. To look into the major donors in each member states, in Vietnam is Japan, in Cambodia and Myanmar is Germany, in Indonesia is United States, in Laupidar is Australia, and in Myanmar is United Kingdom. Next slide, please. So despite the minorities here, multilateral donors also important to look at. Here we can see that most of the multilateral assistance came from the ASEAN Development Bank, or ADB, and the other two agencies were the GGGI and also Global Environment Facility. Next slide, please. While the development financing for energy and gender projects in ASEAN increased over the decade, there was still a huge gap compared to other regions, as reflected here. From the overall budget spent in the world, which is equal to 11.4 billion USD for the past decade, ASEAN received only 6.2%, which was very small share if compared to Asia, and also Africa. The other regions which are comparable to ASEAN were the Middle East, Europe, and South America. Next slide, please. So a focused view into each objective is provided here. Surprisingly, ASEAN is the only region that acquired a large assistance for coal-fired power plants, which have also gender elements on it. The previous section pointed out that most of it goes to Vietnam. However, for the rest of the category, ASEAN is lacking in comparison to other regions. In particular, ASEAN was generally behind in areas that may relate to energy accessibility, as highlighted by yellow boxes here. Next slide, please. A closer look at the ASEAN countries that have similar energy problems with ASEAN, it became more obvious that the shortfall of assistance in the categories under the yellow boxes in the previous slide. They are energy generation for multiple renewable energy technologies, biofuel, hydro, and solar power plant. Next slide, please. So here, the figure shows the financing support for those objectives which have been given to other regions, but not in ASEAN. I would like to highlight that mainstreaming gender in these following eight objectives may help ASEAN to improve the energy access rate through higher participation of women. Next slide, please. So to conclude, the development finance for energy and gender programs is still low in comparison to the total that are allocated to energy or gender projects, and relatively low in comparison to the other regions with many unexplored categories that most are related to the energy access program. Meaning, the problem still remains. Women are the most affected, and it remains crucial that regional and national initiatives should prioritize women and girls' participation. In particular, allocating financing to improve the energy access through innovative business models to foster local entrepreneurship by engaging women. Hence, this strategy listed here are needed with the end goal that gender equality must be utilized to catalyze the economic recovery and also the energy transition. They are like forming the integrated ASEAN roadmap to achieve gender equality, which is, I believe, already started through this initiative between ACE and UNEP, and implement gender-specific indicators to accurately track gender growth data that can be used in the future, formulate adequate regulatory frameworks to encourage women participation in the energy sector, deploy more RE projects in energy and gender projects, and encourage public-private partnership to implement impactful gender-based corporate social responsibility of CSR program. Next slide, please. And this is the end of my slide. I would like to promote the report, which is available to download in the link here. And thank you for the opportunity. I'll return the floor to the MC, my colleague Zhang. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Monica, for your presentations about the report, ASEAN Energy Renewable Report Development Finance. So to continue with our next sections, we are going to watch a short video titled Women-Led Renewable Energy, Best Practices and Innovative Business Models from Ms. Annette Van Oudeneel, the Business and Market Developer Officers from the Alliance for Rural Electrifications, ARE. So Ms. Hiromi, could you please show us the video? Thank you so much.
Dear participants, I'm Ines Van Oudeneel, Business and Market Development Officer at Alliance for Rural Electrification. I would like to start this presentation by thanking the Asian Center for Energy and UNEP for this workshop on renewable energy, entrepreneurship, and gender. Before starting my presentation, I will explain you a bit more about ARE, what we do. So ARE, the Alliance for Rural Electrification, is the global association for the decentralized renewable energy industry, catalyzing private sector-driven markets for sustainable electric services, creating jobs, and powering equitable green economies. We are the first association globally working on the DRE sector. We have at the moment more than 185 members working on in more than 50 countries on 3 continents. ARE mission and energy compact. So by 2030, ARE strives to enable private sector to first deliver sustainable electricity services to more than 500 million people in sub-Saharan Africa, Asia Pacific, and Latin America and Caribbean. Secondly, we do aim to catalyze the creation of more than 5 million green jobs. And finally, avoid 1 billion, more than 1 billion tons of CO2 equivalent emission. So the regional focus and expertise of our members, as you can see, most of our members are active in Africa, but we do also have 55% of our members active in Asia Pacific, and finally 39% of them are working also in Latin America and Caribbean. ARE is technology agnostic, so it means that we do not only work with companies of solar PV, but also welcome members working in wind, hydro, biomass, power components, or energy storage. In terms of systems, most of our members do work on mini-grids, but we do also have members working with standalone. In terms of ARE member services for our members, we do offer 3 main lines of services. The first one is market intelligence and business development support. So we do offer opportunities of networking and B2B to our members. Also direct business advice. We do also have a area of grid matchmaking platform that you can find on our website. We also send weekly alerts with the main information on the industry, access to market as well. The second line of service is the policy and advocacy support. ARE run campaigns of policy and advocacy for the sector. We do also have strong partnership with international partners like IRENA or the European program Get Invest. We also have a strong relationship with the regional partners like ECRE or EACRE. And finally, we do also have strong relationship with the National Association of Renewable Energy. We do offer also capacity building activities and financial trainings to our members. The third line of service is communication and marketing support. We do offer visibility and marketing via ARE digital channels, website, newsletter, as well as we offer visibility at ARE events, exhibition, and awards. Finally, we do also have an off-grid job platform. If you're interested in looking for a new job, then you're invited to check our website. Now, going to the topic of today. So this publication, ARE wrote, a publication called Women Entrepreneurs as Key Drivers in the Decentralized Renewable Energy Sector. First, I would mention, and I see that it's a bit hidden behind my face, but actually the publication is available on our website. You can download it for free. So if you go to ruralelec.org and then resources publication, you will find it. So this publication aims to first highlight the essential role that women play in energy sector and sustainable socioeconomic development in rural communities, but will also serve as inspiration for innovative gender-sensitive approaches to consolidate really the gender equality at each level of the DRE supply chain. So this publication really provides core recommendation for 4 actors: the DRE companies, private investors, international funding partners, and civil society organizations. So the link between access to energy and gender. So first, the energy poverty is really a gender-related issue that affects women and men differently. We need to be aware of that, because constrained by socio-cultural norms and traditional male-dominated structures, women in emerging markets are widely reported to lack the skills, knowledge, decision-making power, and/or financial means to access the electricity. So for those reasons, women are particularly vulnerable to the lack of electricity and should be considered as essential beneficiaries of the DRE solution. Access to energy can reduce also exposure to particulate matter emissions by powering, for example, clean and efficient cooking methods. increase also the safety by improving lighting, as well as mobile phone and online communication, and also minimize the time spent in housekeeping activities and drudgery. Secondly, also we need to be aware that the use of energy also differ for each gender. So today, women traditionally focus on indoor activities and are the main energy users at the household level. Yet they often have little power to decide how the household income is managed. So therefore, we think that gender-sensitive approaches that identify really and integrate the different end users' needs of women and men into the design and planning phase, so really at the beginning level, can reduce the household poverty and improve the overall well-being of the whole community, really as a whole. So here you can see the 17 almost logos of the companies whom we received the case studies from. So based on the best practice from these 17 case studies, also on the publication research on gender energy access, ARE has developed a recommendation for the DRE sector, the companies, CSO, private investors. So I would also invite you to all read the whole publication. So, as I said, based on the 17 case studies, with ARE and Get Invest, actually, whom we wrote the publication with, developed the following recommendation for public and private stakeholders working in the field that strive to achieve the SDG 7 and the socioeconomic benefits associated with it by ensuring gender equality in the DRE sector. So there are 3 levels that have been identified. Here is the first one, community level. I'm not gonna enumerate everything, but what I would like to really mention is that gender consideration, such as the different energy use of women and men, and how to address them, as well as the capacity of women to decide on how their income is spent at home, is very key to a more realistic and inclusive approach to energy access. Thus, DRE companies and CSO need to inform every stage of their energy access project with data on local gender dynamics, acquired through community consultation or workshop in partnership with local association of women, ensuring that men, and particularly women, views are collected as well. Secondly, CSO are encouraged to conduct local gender of DRE awareness campaign in partnership with local association or DRE companies to really build a consensus on what community members think could be sustainably managed or implemented to advance the gender equality and sustainable development at the local level. Involving really both women and men in such activities is vital so that the benefits of women empowerment are acknowledged, gender-based violence risks are reduced, and also the prevailing social barriers can be progressively lifted while making sure that no one is left behind. The second level, organization level. So we really believe that the best way forward also to integrate such solution into a company's model, into company business model or organization program to advance really on the 2 SDGs. So the first step for DRE companies and CSO should really be to develop a gender action plan. We think that it's really important with clear objective to guide the gender mainstreaming process from data collection to monitoring and impact analysis. DRE companies and CSO should follow by collecting gender disaggregated data, for example, the energy uses, the number of informal and formal MSMEs owned by women in the community, purchasing and decision-making power of women, etc., for project and design through the community consultation. The data collected could be then used by DRE companies to design project marketing, sales strategies, or also by CSO to adapt financial and capacity building support around the specific needs of local women, like for example, the system size and configuration. So could be really around that specific needs and also across portfolios. The data collection process could be part of a wider government initiative as well and serve to inform the relevant policy interventions such as the establishment of special subsidies and lifeline rates. Finally, the third and last level is the investors level. It's really an important barrier for DRE companies and CSO to integrate a gender element into their internal policies, projects, and programs, but really the specific financing is important to take into account. So today, we see a growing interest in gender lens investing amongst private investors, but also the international funding partners, followed by also an increasing funding opportunities for companies that have good gender practices. So that's really good. However, the number of gender investing strategies that are available in capital markets is still low. So ARE and its members have identified two main challenges that are that slow down really the engagement of private investors and international funding partners in gender lens investing. So first, the business case for gender lens investing needs to be communicated and strengthened further, as it's not always obvious to private investors on how gender lens investing can improve actually their financial returns. So besides, impact investors and international funding partners must be also fully aware on why gender is a key element in the investment process to achieve their impact goals. So, for example, in energy access, poverty reduction, health education. So to build this awareness, DRE companies and CSO should collaborate to create really knowledge product first, based on impact and financial data from the field, as well as best practice such as the case studies featured in this publication. And then furthermore, international funding partners could encourage DRE companies, CSO and private investors to collect also accurate gender disaggregated data by supporting the development of a standardized impact measurement framework for the DRE programs and projects with a strong focus on gender. Essential data could include, for example, indicators such as number of women-owned MSMEs, the income generation, number of women with control over the income, and or also saving accounts, as well also as their access to loans or credits. This data could then be used to inform both public and private investment approaches to gender equality in energy access, and to monitor also the impact in a standardized way across for the DRE sector. So, for example, for instance, private investors could build on the impact measurement framework to analyze the impact of their investment from a gender perspective. So by calculating the social return on investment and compare the results with the purely financial performance, like the traditional return on investment of the same investment over time. So unfortunately, I'm gonna stop already here. As you can see, there are many more recommendations featured in our publication, so I encourage everyone to read our entire publication available on our website. I would like to thank again the organizers for this important workshop, and if you want my contact, you can always go on our website or write to me directly. My details are here on the screen. Thank you very much.
So we have just finished watching the video presentations from Ms. Ines van Oudenhuis, and that is the end of the panel number 2. So let's move on to the next sections of today's event, which is the discussions and Q&A sections, which will be moderated by my colleagues, Ms. Amira.
Yes, so thank you so much, Zhang, for your information. So I would like to invite Ms. Monica and Mr. Khan Indra to join us in the panel sessions. So we actually kind of like have some questions served here on the chat box. Of course, I still would like to invite everyone, if you have any more questions, please feel free to ask the questions here. However, I noted some of the questions also has been answered as well by our colleagues previously by Ms. Johnny and Ms. Soma. But still, I would like to kind of like address the same questions as well to you both. So for Mr. Kandram Indra, probably I would like to ask questions here. Ms. Siti Badria have questions on the top of policy of decision maker of RE energy policy roadmap is like a woman role, and her personal perspective say that woman leader is more sensitive to climate policy decision than men. However, woman role in energy policy executive on government or private sectors is still very limited. So probably if you have any more response to that, perhaps you could actually kind of like share your thoughts with us as well. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you very much for the question. That's excellent. Since the E4C project is working mostly with private sector and academic institutions, please allow me to answer this question from the perspective of private sector. I think these days, many companies, especially leading companies in the region, they start to realize the importance of gender equality. And some of them start working on this issue already. Like, for example, Pertamina in Indonesia. And some company, they realize this issue, but they still have no idea how to start working on this. So this is the role of E4C, that we can work with them. But anyway, whatever we plan to do on this gender equality has to make business sense to them. We cannot just do this gender equality because the sake of gender equality, but we need to kind of convince them that having more like female workforce make business sense, can like deliver more profits to you. So this is a kind of challenge that we are dealing right now. Luckily, many companies are kind of into this and work with us on this.
Yeah, so probably a follow-up questions to that, I guess, concerning the increased number of female working in the private, in the STEM field, usually from the private sector's perspective. Perhaps could you actually enlighten us on what kind of things that probably needs to be done by the private sectors in order to kind of like encourage, as well as perhaps reskilling or upskilling these type of women probably that previously engaged with the admin or HR role, as you mentioned, in order to kind of like encourage them not only to stay within that boundaries, but go beyond the roles that has been assigned in the past, you know, in recent decades, for the patronage of that. So, Mr. Khan?
Okay, thank you for your question. From our program perspective, we view this as an employee life cycle. When we look into like female individual, we don't just look into like their like working environment, their company, but we need to look into like when they first study in the school, elementary school, university. That's why our project has like two-pronged approach. The first one, we work with tertiary academic institutions, try to increase the number of women and girls studying STEM career. But at the same time, we need to work with energy company as well, try to increase the demand for women and girls. So I think we need to address this challenge on both sides. And again, for our project, we act as some kind of middleman. For certain work, we serve as a platform for the companies to reach out to academic institutions. For example, some company, they want to hire more female worker, but they find it hard to find on the kind of open market. So this is why we come into place and we kind of connect them with like a leading academic institution where they can find like women workforce.
Yeah, I see that you actually kind of like mentioned the recommendations to have like a mentorship and the internship programs to be flourish in the university level. So in that comment, that interdisciplinary collaborations between the private and the governments, as well as the universities, probably need to be enhanced in these things.
Right.
Okay, so probably I would like to go to Miss Monica. If I would like to invite one participants if you have any questions to Miss Monica, but I have kind of like personal questions in this part. We learned previously that the access to finance for the gendered projects probably in energy is very low. You actually mentioned the recommendations, but do you think that the access to finance could actually boost some kind of like renewable energy targets at this moment as well that we could see, or perhaps any other impacts that could actually trigger the focal points of RE-SSN here or REPP-SSN here, or even everyone in the field to kind of like try to open more opportunities for women-led renewable businesses to be involved?
Thank you, Amira, for the intriguing questions. First, I would like to say probably the key problem, also what I presented, like showing the low flow to allocate it to the energy and gender programs. But to clarify, and I also echo the key message from the last RE financing focus group discussion last month, that actually the finance is there, the access is there, but perhaps in this case, when we are talking about gender and energy programs, perhaps I would say there is a limited knowledge from us, like the one who really create the projects, creating the proposals, etc., to tap into those resources. That noting that actually involving women is important, and in fact it is effective to really scale up the energy accessibility, especially in ASEAN. So first, I would like to say that the access is there, but maybe it's more into us to really embed really absorb. I mean, realize the need that we need to include gender in our energy projects, like all the initiatives. That's maybe the first question, and I mean the first key points, and then the second probably in regards to scaling up to meet the RE targets. Yes, eventually with more finance and more renewable energy projects deployed, it will eventually scale up the renewable energy targets. But what I would like to echo here and to convey to the RESS and REPP of call points here is maybe we should look other alternatives, like focusing not only with the large scale RE projects. Maybe we should move on and look into the opportunities like the decentralized RE projects that Ines has already mentioned in the last presentation. Those opportunities really answers the key problems that ASEAN have, and also related closely with the gender issue here in ASEAN. So that probably all, and I hope I answered your questions, and feel free to ask the follow-up question. Thank you.
Yes, so I think that's actually suffice and answers my questions, and I think everyone's curiosity about financing a gendered renewable projects in specific. So I guess we are running out of time. I suppose that everyone have a lot of questions, I know. So if you have any more questions after this sessions, the post-evaluation survey will be available for you to put some additional questions, and I hope all of our speakers would kind enough to kind of like entertain those questions. And the presentations, I believe, would be disseminated to you by email. And just for a brief information, or perhaps a brief wrap up of what we learned today, is we learned that many bottom-up initiatives within the ASEAN member states is actually have been ongoing. A lot of them has been started with donors from many parts of the world, and awaits the top-down approach probably on the regional level to accommodate and align the various ongoing efforts. We also noted that the rationale and the challenges of women entrepreneurship in renewable energy, and then some key recommendations we noted One is that policy reform with the we approach, the integrated support package, mentoring, strengthening, enabling environment access to finance for capital, as well as economic empowerment and improving access. It needs to actually take place, as only 2.7% of total development finance accounts for gender projects. And then we also learned tapping digitalizations to eradicate impediments on access to education for women, and then career advisory mentorship programs also could actually elevate these issues, and many other inputs that we have noted throughout this workshop, which will serve as our reference to develop the roadmap, which hopefully could be launched soon in June 2022. So without further ado, I think that would probably close our sessions workshop today, and also probably that serves also as a remarks, closing remarks. And then I would like to give the stage and the screen to our MC. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Amira, for your very insightful and meaningful discussions with our speakers and also with participants. So ladies and gentlemen, I think at this point we are at the end of the workshop, and I would like to thank you for your proactive participations in the event and having fruitful discussions with our speakers. And we do hope that after all the presentations and all the given information shared in the workshop, these would be beneficial for your future work and studies. And we would like to send our sincere appreciations to all the speakers and colleagues from ACE and from UNEP for making this workshop become a reality. And before ending the workshop, once again, I would like to remind to fill in the post-evaluation surveys, as we will be posted in the chat box later on. So, and also as well as the presentation slide will be also sent to your follow-up emails after this event. And I really hope that your inputs for the survey would be beneficial and highly appreciated for us to improve in the next event. Finally, thank you so much once again, and we wish you to all stay safe and healthy, and see you soon in the following up events and activities. Thank you so much, and goodbye, everyone.